In the eyes of history, Thales is often seen as the father of philosophy and a pioneer of geometry. But what if he was more than just a thinker? Imagine the 6th century BC, when kings ruled with absolute power, and the counsel of a wise man could decide between war and peace. Thales, with his ability to read the stars, measure shadows and predict eclipses, suddenly held a weapon sharper than any sword, knowledge. In the palace, priests eyed him with suspicion. They were used to ruling the people through myths and rituals. But Thales arrived with cold logic, numbers, and straight lines that could expose the secrets of the gods. No wonder whispers spread. Thales was not merely a scientist, he might have been a secret political consultant to rulers. How could he not be? With one eclipse prediction, he could end a war. With geometry, he could help a king build a magnificent palace and strengthen his claim to power. The question is, was Thales truly pursuing pure truth? Or was he also playing on the stage of power? Was he merely a scientist or a hidden architect of politics? This is the mystery that keeps Thales alive in memory. A humble man from Miletus, whose shadow haunted the thrones of kings. The ancient world was filled with swords, gold, and blood. Kings sat on thrones believing they were protected by gods. But one day, a stranger from a small port city arrived. No army, no weapon, only a wooden staff. His name, Thales of Miletus, with one simple experiment, planting his staff in the ground and measuring the shadow, he silenced rulers. That seemingly trivial geometry shattered the arrogance of kings. If distance, height, even pyramids could be measured by human reason, were kings truly half divine? This was the moment when science shook the throne of ancient rulers. It was not the sword that pierced their pride, but lines and triangles. Thales proved that the human mind could uncover the laws of nature once thought to belong only to priests. From that moment, a silent revolution was born. Absolute power began to waver, replaced by a new influence, knowledge. The story of Thales is not just about numbers. It is about how thought can be more dangerous than armies, how geometry can change history, and how a philosopher could challenge both gods and kings. History hides shadows rarely revealed. We know Thales as a philosopher, astronomer, and mathematician, but there is one side seldom discussed, his role in the politics of kings. Picture the court of Lydia, where King Croesus, the richest ruler of the ancient world, prepared to strike Persia. Military advisors counted soldiers, but Thales, he proposed a surprising tactic: divert the flow of the Halys River so the army could cross with ease. That advice wasn't theory, it was a war strategy. And shockingly, Croesus listened. We must ask, was Thales merely a neutral thinker? Or was he secretly advising kings, playing his role behind the scenes? Even the eclipse he predicted, which stopped a war, can be seen not just as science, but as a political weapon that made rulers appear sacred in the eyes of their people. This is Thales's mysterious side. He had no army, no crown, but with his mind, he influenced decisions that changed history. Was it chance or careful strategy? Perhaps Thales was not just the father of philosophy, but the world's first political consultant. Imagine two mighty armies, facing each other on the banks of the Halys River, swords drawn, arrows ready. On one side stood the powerful Lydians, on the other the fierce Medes. Their kings burned with ambition to spill blood for power. But suddenly the sky changed. The blazing sun was swallowed by a colossal shadow. Day turned into night. Soldiers panicked, horses reared, arrows fell before they could fly. In the chaos, one name was whispered among the leaders: Thales of Miletus. He had dared to claim the sun would vanish that very day. An impossible prediction, yet now it had come true. Kings once eager for battle froze. They believed the gods had sent a sign: stop the war. This moment was etched as one of the most dramatic in history. A great war halted not by weapons but by science. Thales, without army or sword, had changed the course of history. But was he merely a brilliant scientist? Or was there strategy behind his prediction? Did Thales know his knowledge could stop bloodshed? Or was he simply proving the power of reason? One thing is clear. On that day, the eclipse was not just a natural event. It was an invisible weapon that made a philosopher more powerful than kings. Since ancient times, mankind believed true strength lay in swords and armies. But Thales overturned this belief. Before kings, he carried no spear or shield. He carried only knowledge, and it proved to be a weapon that could not be destroyed. With a simple line, Thales showed how to measure the height of pyramids using only shadows. Egyptian rulers steeped in mysticism were stunned. How could a foreigner unveil secrets guarded for centuries by priests? In Lydia, he helped Croesus cross a river by altering its course. That was no abstract theory, it was military strategy. In the heavens, he read the sun and moon, then foretold an eclipse that would shake armies. Thales' weapon was invisible. It did not pierce flesh, but it tore illusions apart. His knowledge could humble kings, halt wars, and even topple the foundation of belief that power belonged only to crowns. Today, we may look at technology, satellites, and AI, but their roots lie in the courage of someone like Thales, who dared to confront swords with thought. And in the face of logic, the sword is nothing but ordinary iron. A stranger arrived in Egypt. He brought no gold, no offerings, only a wooden staff. Priests sneered. "What can this man of Miletus do?" they muttered. But Thales planted the staff in the ground, watched the sun, and waited. Slowly, the shadow shifted. And suddenly he declared, "By this, I can measure the height of your pyramids." All eyes widened. The pyramids, symbols of royal and divine power, were now measured by human reason. Knowledge born from staff and shadow unveiled secrets once deemed sacred. Was this a simple experiment, or a hidden message that king's power was not absolute? That everything could be understood and explained? To the people, it was new magic. To the priests, a threat. To the king, a warning. There is power beyond the throne, the power of thought. The tale of Thales' staff and shadow is not just about geometry. It is a symbol of revolution, that with the simplest tool, a foreigner could challenge myths that had lasted for millennia. That wooden staff was more dangerous than a sword, for it carried ideas strong enough to topple illusions. The name of Thales spread far beyond Miletus. To some, he was the father of philosophy, but to many in the ancient world, he was baffling. How could a man predict an eclipse? How could he measure pyramids without climbing them? How did he know military strategy without ever being a general? No wonder rumors spread. Some called him a great philosopher, others a sorcerer allied with gods. Many even suspected, was Thales a spy? How else could he move freely in Egypt, Lydia, and Persia? Why did great kings listen to a foreigner from a small city? Behind all the rumors, one truth remained. Thales held a secret. That secret was knowledge, something that in his time felt like magic. To him, stars were not omens but patterns. Rivers were not miracles but currents that could be altered. Shadows were not mysteries but clues. So who was Thales truly? Philosopher? Sorcerer? Spy? Or all three at once? The answer may never be known, but it is precisely this mystery that keeps Thales alive in stories. Thousands of years after his death, in an age when kings were seen as shadows of gods, listening to a foreigner was unthinkable. Yet Thales did the unthinkable. He made rulers listen to a philosopher. Croesus, famed as the wealthiest king in the world, was not one to bow easily. Yet when Thales spoke, he paused. He listened. He even followed Thales' advice to divert a river so his army could cross. That was not just military strategy, it was an admission that a philosopher's mind could serve a king. Even more, the eclipse that halted a war proved Thales' voice carried farther than the shouts of 1,000 soldiers. Proud kings suddenly obeyed a sign that Thales had foreseen. This was a turning point. The first time in history that a philosopher's words could influence a throne. A signal that the world would no longer be ruled only by swords, but also by thought. Every ancient kingdom had one pillar of power, the priests. They controlled myths, rituals, and ancient science wrapped in mystery. But when Thales came, he brought a threat. Not armies, but numbers. Not spells, but logic. In Egypt, when he measured pyramids with shadows, the priests were humiliated. Knowledge they had guarded for centuries was exposed by a foreigner. In Lydia, when he read the skies and stopped a war, priests lost their grip. What was the point of prayers and sacrifices if a philosopher could predict the will of the gods? This battle was unseen but real. Priests defended their authority with myth. Thales attacked with science. For the people, it was awakening. Humans could think without total submission to holy men. For rulers, it was a silent threat. Power could crumble not through rebellion, but through an idea. And that is Thales' greatest legacy, a war without swords, where logic battled dogma and history was forever changed. Everyone knows a sword can conquer the body, but Thales showed something far more terrifying. A shadow could conquer the mind. With staff and sun, he measured pyramids. With eclipse prediction, he halted war. With simple logic, he shook thrones. The shadow that fell on the ground looked trivial, yet from it came geometry, rational thought, and the courage to defy myth. What seemed small proved sharper than 1,000 swords. To kings, Thales' shadow was a warning. Power is not eternal. To the people, it was hope. The world could be understood, not merely feared. And to history, that shadow was the dawn of a new civilization, when humanity learned that reason is stronger than myth and knowledge more dangerous than weapons.